recognition experts are police officers who are highly trained in detecting and recognizing impairment caused by substances other than alcohol. Consider DREs in the same way you consider evidence technician, canine teams, arson investigators, and other specialized services.
The officer asked me to come down and have a chat with you about a few things.
The DRE helps gather evidence that will solidify your case and provide a better opportunity for conviction. DREs complement the road patrol officers in making a case for driving while ability impaired by drug arrests.
Adam Paul Frank, 3828 South Avenue.
When a patrol officer suspects impairment due to actions or behavior of a vehicle operator, they perform field sobriety tests on the suspect.
Step over here to this white line. Your right index finger touch the tip of your nose.
If the suspect fails the field tests, the officer has probable cause to arrest for 1192-3, common law DWI. Sometimes a suspect provides a breath test, which shows a blood alcohol content that is inconsistent with the impairment seen in the field. This is when a DRE may be called to perform an investigation into the offense of 1192-4, driving while ability impaired by drugs. Often, the question arises, why not just arrest the suspect and take blood if you suspect drugs? One reason is that the road patrol officer may not have sufficient understanding of the effects of various drugs to say, beyond a reasonable doubt, what drug is impairing the suspect, despite the statements or evidence. A sharp defense attorney may be able to cast doubt based on combinations of factors that the patrol officer may not have the training or experience to refute.
If you see or if I indicate that she missed a step, put a line.
Road patrol officers are very good at detecting and testifying about alcohol-intoxicated drivers.
When I say begin, I want you to estimate 30 seconds.
When it comes to drug-impaired drivers, the officer may be able to show impairment based on the suspect's behavior, but may not be able to show what caused the impairment. DREs can use their training and experience to specify a particular drug class and rule out medical causes and alcohol as the impairing factors.
So the first thing I'm going to start off with here.
The DRE will most likely meet the arresting officer and the suspect at a zone, section office, or police department office to perform the evaluation. The evaluation is done under controlled settings using a standardized, systematic approach and takes about 45 minutes. The arresting officer is an integral part of the evaluation process and is never left out of the evidence-gathering phase. The arresting officer will assist the DRE in recording results of the various tests, ensure the DRE's safety as he performs the evaluation, and together reach the no arrest decision.
Right back here, she blew in 5.
The DRE will render his opinion.
Have you been drinking tonight?
And consult with the officer. The final decision whether to arrest a subject for DWAI drugs under New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law Section 1192-4 rests with the arresting officer, based on the totality of the circumstances. The DRE's 12-step process includes an initial breath test to eliminate alcohol as the impairing substance. This may be done before calling the DRE. An interview with the arresting officer to discuss what was found at the scene of the stop, statements, and evidence found. An initial interview of the suspect, including medical screening questions and the first of 3 checks of the suspect's heart rate. Eye examinations, including tracking, gaze nystagmus, and convergence. Psychophysical divide attention tests, reevaluating what was done at the roadside under more controlled conditions. Vital signs, including second pulse check, blood pressure, and body temperature. Darkroom examinations, evaluations conducted in a totally dark room to assess pupil size in 3 lighting conditions, and an ingestion exam to determine if an oral or nasal route was used. Check for muscle tone. Check for injection sites and final pulse. Statements of the suspect and other observations made by the DRE. The DRE renders an opinion. Toxicology samples are secured, urine and in some cases blood. If the suspect refuses to submit to a breath test and you suspect something other than alcohol, it may be prudent to call a DRE. Surprisingly, some suspects will sooner submit to a urine or blood test at the conclusion of the DRE evaluation, where they may have refused the breath test before. If the suspect takes the breath test but later refuses to give urine or blood after the DRE evaluation, it is considered a refusal After being arrested for common law DWI, they are now being investigated and charged with DWAI drugs, a separate section of the law. If you stop a suspect on a traffic violation and they don't smell of alcohol but fail the field sobriety tests, you don't necessarily have to call for a DRE. First, try to confirm that alcohol is not present to rule out that scenario altogether. Confirm it with a breath test, then call a DRE. In serious physical injury or death-involved crashes, especially where you suspect alcohol was not the impairing substance, it's good to get the DRE to the scene as soon as possible. If you can't make a case for the impairment based on your observations and performance on field sobriety tests, it's just as likely that there simply is no impairment. For instance, a suspect who smells of marijuana and admits to smoking but shows no sign of impairment on the field sobriety tests. Some drugs take longer to enter the system and become psychoactive than others. Some have very short-lived effects. You need to make the initial determination. If you are uncomfortable letting the suspect go, there is no harm in calling a DRE to the scene for advice. There are some techniques the DRE might use that might better display the suspect's impairment. The road patrol officer will still make the arrest decision based on driving behavior and field sobriety test results. The DRE will usually be called after the arrest decision is made unless unusual circumstances exist or the officer is in need of further consultation. The Emergency Communications Department, 911, has a listing of all currently practicing DREs in Monroe County by department. If there is no DRE on duty with your department, call for one just as you would for other support services. Check to see if your department's policy requires you to go through a supervisor first. If no DRE is on duty with your department, there is a mutual aid plan in place to provide services from other Monroe County departments, including the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, RPD, Brockport, Gates, Greece, Ogden, Webster, and the New York State Police. If all else fails, there may be a means by which to call a DRE in from home. In the event that no DRE is available from any source, make your observations, document your findings, and take the suspect for blood. The Monroe County Medical Examiner's Office has asked that without a DRE evaluation, arresting officers take blood, not urine. However, in the case of a serious physical injury or death-related crash, you should take both blood and urine. The drug evaluation and classification program serves to support the road patrol officer by providing evidence that a person is under the influence of a drug other than alcohol. Their immediate goal is to establish probable cause for a DWAI drugs arrest. A DRE's goal is not only to obtain convictions for drug-impaired driving offenses and reduce death and injury on the roadways. They may be utilized for other situations, such as fatal or serious physical injury crashes, drug-facilitated rape or assault, and education programs. If you have any questions about the DRE program or would like information on becoming a DRE, contact the New York State DRE program, Region 6 Coordinator at 585-748-4658.